If you're struggling with the hooker position in NRL Fantasy 2024, you are certainly not alone. Welcome back. Longy here, previous overall NRL Fantasy champ, currently ranked about 200th. Here to bring you my rankings for the hooker position. Now, a couple of things I want to highlight in this graph here. A few options that are key. First one, Damien Cook. He has an upside score that is unmatched in terms of Fantasy 2024. So that upside score is closer to 80 points. Whereas if you go down to the right here, there's a few more consistent options, but Reed Marnie is the most consistent hooker in 2024. The other guy that I'm going to go into deep as well is Harry Grant. So this 2024 data set isn't great, but we are going to look at 2023 and 2022 as well and how he's performed historically. So first up on the list here, we've got Reed Marnie. Look, he's sitting interestingly here, 54.6 average when he plays the role that he's playing right now. He's priced at about a 52, so you get a little bit of value there. His buy score is number one out of all hookers with a 75. His consistency score is also number one. So an 81 consistency score is quite strong. And you can see that 81 gets fed by the fact that he goes 40 plus 100% of the time. So Reed Marnie doesn't score below 40. You can always rely on him to score between 40 and usually about 60 points. So about 75% of his games are sitting between 40 and 60. The other 25% jump up above that essentially. The upside score is 25, so that's quite weak. It's reflected by the fact that he doesn't go above 70 very often, and he never goes above 80 points. So with Reed, you're getting that consistent score because his scoring is usually based on tackles and maybe try assists, but you're not getting that running game dynamism of some other hookers that we're going to look at here. So you don't get those big upside games, but you do usually get about 50 tackles a game and a very solid score. Next up here, we've got Damien Cook, number 2. So Cookie Monster, he's a 56.8 average when he plays the role he's in right now. 2.8 points of value, so he's priced at about a 54, so he's basically paying for what you get. The buy score is a 71.5, and there's a couple of things that go into that. So obviously the consistency is quite high for Cook. The upside is very high for Cook as well, but the job security isn't fantastic. So I look at Damien Cook and I look at the Bunnies and I think this Rabbitohs team is 2 wins out of the 8. They don't have Latrell Mitchell right now, and they have Damien Cook as their starting hooker who's going to be leaving for the Dragons next year, and Marmazella sitting on the bench. So if they fall out of touch with the finals, my view is that South Sydney will probably start to give Marmazelis more and more minutes down the stretch. And I think he could steal, at first maybe 10 or 20 minutes, then maybe 30, 40 minutes, and maybe even get the starting spot as well if he's going to be their starter for next year. So Damien Cook, as much as I love the scoring profile, and he is the number one for upside for a reason, I think that risk is quite high that he loses minutes down the stretch, and that has downgraded his score to a 71.5 here. Good thing with Cook, though, is 70 plus and 80 plus scores. 15% of his games is going 80 plus. So he has an upside score that no other hooker can match, and that's where he's essentially excelling here. He's almost broken the model. Personally, I would have him even lower, but the data says what the data says. So Harry Grant, next player on the ranks here. Look, he's priced at a 47, so you get a bit of value here, 657K, about 100K cheaper than Damien Cook, which I think is very important. The other thing is you've got a buy score here that's feeding off some pretty average data. So he goes above 40 most weeks, but 60 plus, he's only going above 60 plus 17% of the time. Now, to refresh your memory, Cook is going 80 plus 15% of the time. So Harry Grant's scoring this year has been really average, and he hasn't gone above 70 all year, which isn't really typical for Harry Grant. Because of that, we've got a really low consistency score here. So fifth in consistency and 7th in upside. Right, so really low numbers here across the board. The question is, with Harry Grant, do we see him being a hooker that sits in this position going forward, or do we think there's a bounce back coming? I wanted to have a look at previous years, so I actually mapped out Harry Grant's 2022 and 2023 seasons, and when we do that, we see him jump right to the top. So Harry Grant 2022 is up here with a 95 upside score, which is absolutely crazy, and Harry Grant 2023 is sitting just here. So 2022, Harry Grant would have been the strongest on both upside and consistency. 2023, he was just behind Reed for consistency, but still the highest in upside. So the question is, do you think that Harry Grant bounces back to 2022 or 23 form, or do you think 2024 is the new norm for Harry Grant? My view on this is that these are really the 3 big options. So Reed Marnie for consistency, Damien Cook for upside, or Harry Grant for that previous pedigree. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking at the price, 650K. And because of the fact that the hooker position is quite weak compared to other positions, I'm going to jump on Harry Grant. I'm going to hope that he goes back to his regular form. And worst case scenario, he's sitting down here he's sort of in the same league as a lot of these guys anyway, slightly behind. But there is some risk that he does get a rest, with the Storm doing quite well and with the fact that Garlic has been playing decent filling in for him too. There also is that injury risk with Origin and all these other things as well. So there is a bit of risk there, but I think Harry Grant's the option to go for. But if you want the upside of Damien Cook, don't mind that. If you want the consistency and locked-inness of Reed Marnie, that's solid as well. So up to you, but they're my top three.